She used to believe that her life was simple and safe. Her name was Lily Brown, and for many years she thought her marriage was strong. She lived in a small quiet town, in a house she once called a dream. Her husband, Ethan Brown, was charming in the beginning. He smiled easily, spoke softly, and always promised that he would protect her. People around them believed they were the perfect couple. But slowly, something began to change. At first, it was so small that Lily almost ignored it. Ethan started coming home late. When she asked where he had been, he would sigh and say work was stressful. Lily believed him because she wanted to. She told herself that marriages had phases, and this was just one of them. Then came the silence. Ethan stopped talking during dinner. He kept his phone face down on the table. His eyes were always somewhere else. Lily felt like she was sitting beside a stranger, but she stayed quiet. She was afraid that asking too many questions would push him further away. At night, when the house was dark and quiet, Lily would lie awake. She listened to the sound of Ethan breathing beside her. Sometimes she wondered if he was awake too, thinking about things he never shared with her. Her chest felt heavy, like something bad was waiting in the shadows. The real fear began when money became a problem. Ethan started asking questions about their savings. How much was in her account, where her old inheritance papers were, why certain things were in her name. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. Lily felt uncomfortable, but she answered him anyway. She trusted him. After all, he was her husband. One evening, Lily came home early from work. The house was quiet, too quiet. She heard papers moving in the bedroom. When she opened the door, she saw Ethan standing near the cupboard, holding a folder. It was the folder that held her personal documents. He looked surprised for a moment, then smiled. He said he was just organizing things. But Lily felt a chill run through her body. That night, she could not sleep. Her mind kept replaying the scene. Why was he touching her documents without telling her? Why did his smile feel cold instead of warm? Days passed, and the tension grew thicker. Ethan became controlling. He questioned her spending, her calls, even her visits to her sister. When Lily tried to talk about how she felt, Ethan turned angry. He said she was overthinking. He said she was being dramatic. One night, the argument became louder than usual. Lily stood in the kitchen, her hands shaking. Ethan stood across from her, his voice sharp like broken glass. He accused her of hiding money. She denied it, tears filling her eyes. She asked him why he no longer trusted her. Ethan laughed, but there was no humor in it. He said trust was for fools. Those words stayed with Lily. After that night, the house no longer felt like home. Every room carried tension. Every conversation felt dangerous. Lily began to notice things she had ignored before. Messages on Ethan's phone that stopped when she entered the room. Calls he took outside. Sudden meetings with lawyers that he called work errands. Fear slowly replaced love. Lily tried to save the marriage. She suggested counseling. She cooked his favorite meals. She tried to remind him of who they once were. But Ethan seemed distant, almost annoyed by her efforts. It was as if he had already left the marriage in his heart. The breaking point came on a rainy evening. Ethan came home late again. His clothes were dry, but the rain outside was heavy. Lily asked him where he had been. He did not answer. Instead, he placed a document on the table. It was a divorce notice. Lily felt the world spin. Her hands went cold. She looked at the paper, then at Ethan. He did not look sad. He looked confident. He told her calmly that the marriage was over. He said he was tired of pretending. Lily asked him why. Her voice broke as she spoke. She asked if there was another woman. Ethan did not answer that question. Instead, he said something that cut deeper than any truth. He said he would take everything. Those words echoed in Lily's mind. Everything meant the house. Everything meant her savings. Everything meant the life she had built piece by piece. She realized then that the man standing in front of her was not the man she married. That night, Lily packed a small bag and left the house. She stayed with her sister, staring at the ceiling, unable to cry. Fear wrapped around her like a tight knot. She did not know what the future held, but she knew one thing. The end had already begun, and the battle ahead would change everything. The next morning felt unreal to Lily. She woke up in her sister's guest room, staring at the pale ceiling as sunlight slipped through the curtains. The silence was strange. No footsteps. No cold voice. Yet her chest felt tight, like the threat from the night before was still hanging in the air. She checked her phone. There were messages from Ethan. Short and sharp. He told her not to touch anything in the house. He reminded her that a lawyer would contact her soon. There was no apology. No regret. Only control. Lily's hands trembled as she put the phone down. 2 days later, she received the official court notice. Seeing her name printed beside words like assets, property, and claims made her stomach turn. It no longer felt like a marriage ending. It felt like a war beginning. On the day of the first court hearing, Lily wore a simple grey dress. She wanted to disappear into the background. The courthouse was large and cold, filled with echoing footsteps and low voices. She felt small walking through the metal doors, like her life was being judged before she even spoke. Ethan arrived late. He walked in with confidence, wearing a dark suit and a calm smile. Beside him was his lawyer, a man with sharp eyes and a thin grin. Ethan did not look at Lily at first. When he finally did, his eyes were empty. No love. No memory. Just distance. They sat on opposite sides of the room. When the judge entered, Lily's heart began to race. She clasped her hands together, trying to steady herself. She reminded herself to breathe. Ethan spoke first. His voice was clear and firm. He talked about sacrifices. He talked about how he had carried the marriage. Then his lawyer began listing demands. The house. The savings. The car. Even items Lily had owned before marriage. Each word felt like a blade. Lily looked at Ethan in disbelief. She could not understand how he could say these things so easily. Her throat tightened, but she stayed silent. Then Ethan turned toward her. In a voice loud enough for the room to hear, he said he would take everything from her. He said she did not deserve a single thing. He said she would leave the marriage with nothing. The room felt suddenly very quiet. Lily felt her face burn. She could feel eyes on her. Strangers watching her humiliation. Her chest ached, but she refused to cry. Something inside her shifted in that moment. Fear was still there, but now it was mixed with a quiet strength. When it was her turn to speak, her voice was soft but steady. She said she only wanted fairness. She said she wanted peace. She did not accuse. She did not attack. She simply spoke the truth. Ethan smiled as if he had already won. After the hearing, Lily walked out of the courtroom feeling weak. Her legs felt heavy, like they might give way. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. She leaned against the wall, trying to gather herself. Ethan passed by her without stopping. He whispered that she should give up. He said the court would believe him. He said fighting would only make things worse for her. Lily watched him walk away, his footsteps fading down the steps. That night, she could not sleep. Her mind replayed his words again and again. She imagined losing her home, her memories, her sense of safety. The fear felt endless. But beneath it, something else was growing. Resolve. The next morning, Lily made a decision. She would not give up. Not quietly. Not easily. She began looking through old files at her sister's house. Bank statements. Emails. Documents she had once ignored. She noticed patterns she had never questioned before. Money moved without her knowledge. Accounts she did not recognize. Promises that had never been kept. With each discovery, her fear slowly turned into clarity. She realized Ethan had underestimated her. He thought she was weak because she was kind. He thought silence meant surrender. But Lily was beginning to understand the truth. This was no longer just about divorce. It was about survival. And somewhere deep inside, she knew the man who promised to take everything had already made his first mistake. Days passed, but time felt strange to Lily. Sometimes it moved too fast, other times it stood still. She stayed at her sister's house, living out of a small suitcase. Every morning she woke with a heavy feeling in her chest, but she forced herself to get up. She knew she could not afford to fall apart. During the day, she acted calm. At night, fear returned. She would sit on the edge of the bed, holding her phone, reading old messages from Ethan. Words that once sounded loving now felt fake. Promises of forever, of safety, of partnership. She wondered how she had missed the truth for so long. Lily did not tell many people what was happening. She felt ashamed, even though she had done nothing wrong. She feared being judged. She feared hearing people say she should have seen it coming. So she stayed quiet and carried the pain alone. But silence became her strength. Instead of arguing or begging, Lily began to observe. She listened carefully during short calls with Ethan's lawyer. She noticed how confident they sounded, how sure they were that everything would go in Ethan's favor. It scared her, but it also made her careful. One afternoon, Lily met with a lawyer of her own. A kind woman named Grace. Grace spoke gently, but her eyes were sharp. She listened without interrupting as Lily explained everything. When Lily finished, her hands were shaking. Grace did not promise an easy win. She said the road would be hard. But she said something else that stayed with Lily. She said the truth has weight, and lies always leave marks. Those words gave Lily a small sense of hope. At home, Lily began organizing everything. She made piles of papers on the floor. Bank records. Tax files. Old letters. It felt overwhelming. Sometimes she would stop and cry quietly, sitting among the scattered pages. The life she had built felt torn apart. But she kept going. Late one night, she found something strange. A bank statement with transactions she did not recognize. Large amounts moved to another account. An account only in Ethan's name. Her heart began to pound. She searched deeper. There were more records. Hidden transfers. Dates that matched times Ethan had said he was working late. Lily felt sick as the truth slowly appeared. He had been moving money for months. Maybe longer. This was not a sudden divorce. This was planned. Lily felt anger rise, but she pushed it down. Anger could blind her. She needed clarity. She took photos of the documents. She saved copies. She backed them up twice. She moved carefully, quietly. Ethan called her a few days later. His voice was calm, almost friendly. He asked if she had thought about settling. He said the court process would be long and painful. He said it would be better for her to accept his terms and move on. Lily listened without interrupting. When she finally spoke, she said she needed time. Ethan laughed softly and said she was making a mistake. After the call ended, Lily's hands were cold. She realized he still believed he was in control. He believed she knew nothing. That realization gave her strength. The next weeks were exhausting. Meetings with lawyers. Long nights reading documents she barely understood. Moments of doubt where she wondered if fighting was worth it. Sometimes she imagined giving up, walking away with nothing just to end the pain. But then she remembered his words in court. Everything. He had wanted everything. And that made her stay. Emotionally, Lily felt torn. Some mornings she missed the man Ethan used to be. Or the man she thought he was. She missed the comfort of routine, the illusion of safety. Grief came in waves, unexpected and sharp. Other mornings, she felt stronger. She started taking walks alone, early in the morning when the streets were quiet. The cold air cleared her thoughts. She reminded herself that she was still here. Still standing. Still capable. One evening, Grace called her. She said the documents Lily had found were important. Very important. She said they showed patterns that could change everything. Lily sat down slowly, her heart racing. For the first time since the divorce notice, she felt something close to confidence. Not happiness. Not relief. But balance. Ethan had built his case on control and fear. He believed Lily would stay silent. He believed she would break. But Lily was learning how to be patient. How to wait. How to let the truth speak when the time was right. As she looked out the window that night, watching the city lights flicker, she understood something deeply. This battle was not only about money or property. It was about her voice. And she was no longer afraid to use it. The second court hearing arrived sooner than Lily expected. The days before it passed in a blur of preparation and restless nights. She barely slept, her mind filled with questions and quiet fears. Still, she kept going, one step at a time. The morning of the hearing, she stood in front of the mirror and studied her reflection. Her face looked tired, but her eyes were steady. She chose simple clothes again. She did not want to appear strong or weak. She wanted to appear honest. Inside the courthouse, the air felt heavy. People whispered, papers shuffled, doors opened and closed. Lily sat beside Grace, her lawyer, holding a folder tightly in her lap. Her hands were cold, but she kept them still. Ethan entered the room with the same confidence as before. He smiled and spoke softly to his lawyer. He did not look nervous. He looked certain. When his eyes met Lily's for a brief moment, there was something like pride in them, as if he believed this was already over. The judge called the case. Ethan's lawyer spoke first again. He repeated the same claims, but this time with more detail. He said Ethan had supported the marriage financially. He said Lily had depended on him. He said she had no right to many of the assets she was asking for. Lily listened quietly. Each sentence felt familiar, like a story she had heard too many times. Then Grace stood up. Her voice was calm and respectful. She began by speaking about timelines, dates, records. She handed documents to the court clerk. Papers that showed financial movements. Money that had been transferred without Lily's knowledge. The judge leaned forward. Ethan shifted in his seat for the first time. Grace continued. She explained that some assets had been moved shortly before the divorce filing. She said these actions raised questions about intent and honesty. She did not accuse directly. She let the facts sit in the room. The judge turned to Ethan and asked him to explain the transfers. Ethan cleared his throat. He said the money was for investments. He said Lily had known about them. His voice sounded firm, but there was tension beneath it. Grace responded by presenting messages and emails. Conversations that showed Lily asking questions about money and receiving vague answers. Dates that did not match Ethan's explanation. The room felt still. Lily's heart pounded as she watched the judge study the documents. Every second felt long. She could hear her own breathing. Then the judge asked Ethan another question. Why were the accounts in his name only? Ethan hesitated. It was a small pause, but Lily noticed it. For the first time, his confidence cracked. He gave an answer, but it sounded rushed. Uncertain. The judge did not respond right away. He simply nodded and made notes. When the hearing ended, the judge said more review was needed. He said the case was becoming complex. He ordered full financial disclosure from both sides. Lily felt a quiet wave of relief. Outside the courtroom, Ethan did not smile this time. His jaw was tight. He avoided Lily's eyes as he walked past her. His lawyer whispered something urgently to him. Grace touched Lily's arm and told her she had done well. Lily nodded, unable to speak. Later that evening, Lily sat alone in her sister's living room. The house was quiet. She replayed the day in her mind. The questions. The pause. The shift in the room. For the first time, the power no longer felt one-sided. She knew the battle was not over. There would be more hearings. More pressure. More fear. But something important had changed. Ethan was no longer fully in control. And he knew it. As Lily turned off the lights and prepared for bed, she felt tired but grounded. The truth had stepped into the light, and it was no longer just her word against his. The court had begun to listen. And that made all the difference. The weeks that followed were heavy and tense. Lily felt like she was living inside a long pause, waiting for something to break. Every email from the court made her heart race. Every phone call felt important. She tried to stay calm, but fear still visited her at night. Ethan, on the other hand, began to change. His messages grew shorter. His tone lost its sharp edge. The man who once spoke with confidence now sounded careful. Sometimes, He said nothing at all. Silence, which he once used against Lily, was now wrapping around him. The next hearing arrived on a grey morning. This time, Ethan looked different. His suit was the same, but his face was tight, tired. His lawyer spoke less. When the judge asked questions, Ethan answered more slowly. The certainty he once carried had faded. Grace presented more evidence. Bank records showed a clear pattern. Money moved just before the divorce filing. Assets hidden. Statements that did not match earlier claims. Each document felt like another brick falling from a wall Ethan had built around himself. The judge asked Ethan to explain again. This time, his answers stumbled. He blamed confusion. He blamed bad advice. He said he never meant to hide anything. His voice wavered slightly. Lily watched quietly, her emotions mixed. Part of her felt anger. Another part felt sadness. She remembered the man she had loved, and it hurt to see what he had become. But she stayed focused. Grace then brought up something else. A property Ethan claimed was his alone. Documents showed Lily's name connected to it. Payments she had made. Repairs she had handled. Proof that her contribution had been real and lasting. The judge looked directly at Ethan. The courtroom felt tense. After a long pause, the judge spoke. He said the evidence raised serious concerns. He said trust and honesty mattered in cases like this. He said attempts to hide assets would not be ignored. Lily felt her breath catch. The ruling was not final, but it was clear. Ethan's demands would not stand. The court ordered the assets to be reviewed fairly. Some of Ethan's claims were denied immediately. Others were placed under investigation. Ethan's face drained of color. He looked at Lily then, truly looked at her, for the first time in months. There was shock in his eyes. Fear. Maybe even regret. But it was too late. Outside the courtroom, Ethan's lawyer spoke in a low, urgent voice. Ethan listened, his shoulders slumped. The man who once promised to take everything now looked lost. Lily stood quietly beside Grace. She did not feel joy. She felt release. A heavy weight lifting from her chest. That evening, Lily sat alone again, watching the sky change colors. She thought about the journey so far. The fear. The silence. The strength she did not know she had. Ethan had tried to win by control. But control had become his weakness. He had underestimated the truth. He had underestimated patience. And most of all, he had underestimated her. The court had not ended the case yet, but the outcome was clear. Ethan was losing everything he had tried to steal. And Lily was no longer afraid. The final court date arrived quietly, without drama. There were no raised voices, no bold claims, no threats. The tension that once filled the room was gone. What remained was truth, laid out clearly, with nowhere left to hide. Lily sat in her seat, hands resting calmly in her lap. She felt different now. The fear that once ruled her had faded into something softer and stronger. Acceptance. Ethan entered the courtroom with his lawyer, but he no longer looked powerful. His movements were slow. His eyes avoided everyone's gaze. The man who once promised to take everything now carried the weight of his own choices. The judge reviewed the final documents. The hidden transfers. The corrected asset lists. The verified records. Everything had been examined carefully. When the ruling was read, Lily listened closely. The assets were divided fairly. The house was ordered to be sold, with proceeds split based on contribution. The savings Ethan tried to hide were returned to the shared pool. Lily kept what she had brought into the marriage. Ethan lost his claim over what was never truly his. There was no victory speech. No celebration. Only a quiet end. Ethan did not speak when it was over. He gathered his papers and left without looking back. Lily watched him go, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Sadness for what was lost. Relief for what was saved. Gratitude for what she had learned. Outside the courthouse, the air felt lighter. The sky was clear. Lily took a deep breath and closed her eyes for a moment. It was over. In the days that followed, life slowly began to feel normal again. Lily moved into a small apartment of her own. It was not grand, but it was peaceful. Every corner belonged to her. She unpacked slowly, choosing what to keep and what to leave behind. Each decision felt like a step forward. Emotionally, healing was not quick. Some nights were still hard. Memories returned without warning. But they no longer controlled her. She had faced her fear and survived it. Lily started doing small things for herself. Morning walks. Quiet coffee moments. Long conversations with her sister. She began to feel present again, grounded in her own life. Sometimes, she thought about Ethan. Not with anger, but with clarity. He had wanted everything, but in trying to take it all, he had lost the most important things. Trust. Respect. And her. As for Lily, she gained something greater than property or money. She gained her voice. She learned that kindness is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. And strength does not always shout. As she stood by her window one evening, watching the sun set, Lily felt calm. Her story had ended one chapter, but another had begun. This time, it belonged entirely to her.